I'm Matt.
I'm Shane.
And if you like what you hear, make sure you hit that thumbs up button real hard, and make sure you subscribe to Comic Movie Marks.
And also click that little bell for all of the notifications.
Whee!
Always remember,
if Trailer Trash can do it,
anyone can do it.
Some fans are obsessed with the so-called Snydercut of Justice League, like an alternate cut.
Yeah.
Are you, I mean...
I'm obsessed with it too.
Are you? Yeah. What's your take on that? Like, do you want to see a different version eventually at some point, or is there a different version?
I mean, that's just one thing that sucks with our business, where you just can't speak your mind, but yeah.
Okay.
Fuck yeah.
Okay.
Hello and welcome everyone to another Comic Movie Marks video.
We have the release of the Aquaman Rotten Tomatoes score and a Twitter question that we are going to answer on here. I'm sure the individual thought we were ignoring them, but no, we're gonna throw it in an episode.
I'll like it right now. Boom.
Boom, there it is.
The Twitter question being, are you guys going to talk about Jason's leverage, or leverage, depending on where you're from, with the TSC, the Snydercut, I presume. I don't think it's Texas State Christian College, whatever. I tried to fucking manipulate it. And what does this body odor in China give to the DCEU, I mean box office, not in relevance to the Snyder Cut, but overall? I thought that was kind of an interesting question, especially as you see what's going on right now with Aquaman.
And I think the big part that we have to keep in mind is it depends on how this movie is perceived with the general audience, or even with some people who didn't like some of the previous films. Currently, it sits at $94 million foreign. Obviously, hasn't been released domestically yet. That's as of today, December 11th. What I'm curious about is how people, depending on the success of this, is how people are going to take it. I've already started seeing comments, which we'll get into a little bit, in regards to, see, this is why you needed to go away from Snyder's vision. Look how great Aquaman's doing. And then some people who are like, see, this is exactly why you needed to stick with Snyder's vision. Look how great Aquaman's doing. So you're still going to have that dispute, and Aquaman could just be used as an anecdote, I guess, or, you know, a pawn in someone's argument. It's just kind of interesting.
Well, you saw that with Wonder Woman. People were like, see, Zack Snyder was away from a Wonder Woman, and DC finally made a great movie.
Yeah, that's true.
But yet he was like so heavily involved with Wonder Woman. I mean, he doesn't have a screenplay credit, but if you look at the credits, it says story by, and it says Zack Snyder and the other guy, whoever the other guy was. I should probably look that up because everybody's gonna correct us. Hey, Shane, by the way, did you know what a Ronin was? It was a samurai without a master.
Thanks for the 20 corrections that I got on Ronin. I appreciate it.
Oh, that was great. That was making me laugh so hard.
Am I the only one who was like as soon as I heard the term Ronin, like I said, not to get too far off a topic, but I heard this a while ago, probably like, I don't know, maybe a year, maybe 2 years, about like the evolution of Hawkeye into Ronin. And I was just confused, given, you know, we just had Guardians of the Galaxy not too long ago, with Ronin being a big character in that. So that's what threw me off. That's what confused me. And then I appreciate the help, I guess, as to what Ronin actually means. So I don't know. I just thought I was trying to take a jab at Marvel, and then everyone's like, no, you idiot. This is what Ronin means.
So Aquaman's success over in China so far is building up. It gets released in the UK this week. So, I mean, it's already building up so much momentum. I see some people are still excited about some of these critic reviews for Aquaman. And for Shane and I, it's always the opposite. If the critics like it, we get worried.
And Aquaman is no different.
Yeah.
I thought it was kind of funny, you know, Rotten Tomatoes, all over social media, they had a 12-second little clip of, oh, here's the tomato meter reveal. You know, I expected like some type of awesome theme music or something to go with it. Started out at 78% on the tomato meter earlier today. It was released about noon, I think. From there, or well, I guess noon our time, Pacific time. And then from there, it looks like it currently sits at 76% on Rotten Tomatoes as of this recording. So, and I thought exactly the same thing. I'm like, okay, great. It didn't come out at like a 99 or whatever, some stupid shit. This is kind of where I wanted it to land, right in here, to where, you know, the people who actually look at it and go, okay, some critics liked it, some didn't, you know, it makes me feel a little bit more comfortable. And I have some examples as well that we'll get into as to where I'm like, okay, if this is what you're saying, then boom, right up my alley.
Right up your alley. All right.
No homo.
I kind of think it's funny that it's doing so well overseas. The momentum coming from it is doing so well. I was just looking at all these videos recently, all within the last like 8 months or so. Is it time to end the DCEU? The DCEU is officially dead. All these videos talking about how dead it is. And yet Aquaman proves them wrong. More on about they need a reboot. 5 reasons why WB should abandon the current DCEU. WB, is it time to reboot the DCEU after Justice League Fallout? DCEU reboot, my thoughts, whatever, keeps going. Even just recently, 3 days ago, after the overwhelming success of Aquaman has been prevalent, somebody has, DC Films are rebooting the universe, new evidence of DCEU reboot.
I'm sorry, I'm allergic to bullshit.
Even with Aquaman's success, people are still talking about this crap. But yet, this is a DCEU character. This is a Snyder character for the most part with Juan's vision tacked to it. And yet it's doing well. And they got Aquaman, of all characters, Aquaman over. How the hell do you do that? I understand New 52 kind of revamped him and made him more interesting. But a lot of common folk don't know that. They know him as the Justice Friends guy. The one that's riding the dolphins. No one respects Aquaman. I mean, look at like a Robot Chicken. I mean, he's shit on constantly in Robot Chicken. And they found a way to make Aquaman cool again. Or cool in general, because I don't know if he ever was before.
Yeah, I don't think so. There's a great episode of Big Bang Theory where one of the characters, Raj, they're trying to form the Justice League, and he would rather go dressed as Wonder Woman than Aquaman. And he's like, I don't want to be Aquaman. Aquaman sucks. I'll just be Wonder Woman. It's fantastic. It's a great episode, and that's exactly where Aquaman has really landed. And there's so many jokes, you know, on Family Guy, Aquaman's just beat up. And yeah, as Matt said, finally he's over, you know, and he was a great part for the most part of Justice League. So finally seems like we're gonna get a solid Aquaman movie, continue to propel this universe, the already established universe, forward.
Which is the point, right? I did see this great comment brought up by somebody. Of course, DC Olympus, if you don't know him on Instagram or Twitter, he's on there and he's pretty much destroying all these Rotten Tomatoes critics and everything right now on their irrelevancy and their stupid comments so far. He's on a roll right now. But he also posted this one by Amateur Watcher. Opening overseas first was so smart. US is the only market dumb enough to base their movie taste on a red tomato. You, sir, get a slow clap. So now let's talk about what Rotten Tomatoes has laid upon us with their almighty telling score.
So one of the things that I wanted to bring up, this is directly from an editorial on the RottenTomatoes.com website. A title of an article says, Aquaman's first reviews, the DCEU gets its second fresh film, ... at least for now.
Get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck on out of here, man. Go about your thing.
This was written by Christopher Campbell earlier today, and then he talks about early reviews from James Wan's story for the Justice League Atlantean. Hero says it's unapologetically over-the-top spectacle with a perfectly cast Jason Momoa. Thank you, Zack Snyder. So, you know, and then it just kind of compiles what a lot about the critics are saying. Is actually put together pretty cool if you care about what critics are saying. There's different categories. Is it actually any good? What about its place in the DC universe? And when compared to Marvel, how crazy is it? Does it go overboard? And then it just compiles little pull quotes from each of these. So I thought it was actually kind of intriguing. But again, you know, it's Rotten Tomatoes. It's dumbass critics most of the time who probably don't really know who Aquaman is. So a lot of it's irrelevant.
Some of these great pull quotes, fantastic. One guy actually being somewhat honest, and we've actually talked about this before. If the person doesn't appreciate the movie for what it is, maybe state that, then give your review. And that's actually what this guy does. He made it rotten, but Aquaman wasn't for me, but I admire a lot about this movie. Flat out saying it wasn't for him. So if you agree with this dude from Screen Junkies, Dan Murrell, if you agree with him, well, there you go. If you kind of go with his movie taste, then you got a good idea that you may not like it. I'd prefer that type of honesty, but I could get how that could be really repetitive over and over again if actually everybody was honest and all these rotten people say, well, it wasn't for me. You know, I'm not much of an ocean guy. I don't like fish. I'm allergic to crab. You know, so I didn't really like this movie. Shit like that might be a little annoying.
I don't know. I mean, we've talked about this in the past a lot. Like, I think it actually can kind of paint a better picture if you talk about like, hey, maybe I'm not the audience for this movie, but here's what I thought. Here's breaking it down as a movie, story, character arc, and plot, all that kind of stuff. This is what I thought, as opposed to a lot of people take it with like, I'm clearly not the audience for this, but it's garbage. Boom, drop, it's fucking rotten on Rotten Tomatoes. One person, this is from Mara Reinstein, and this was one of my favorite pull quotes. This is from Us Weekly or US Weekly or whatever the hell. I don't know. I don't read that shit. Mara says, take away Momoa's steady presence and you're looking at an overstuffed mess that provides entertainment purely in an OMG, this is a disaster kind of way. And the reason why that's my favorite is it reminds me so much of Batman v Superman. People talking about that it's an overstuffed mess that's like, oh, I can't believe that this is exactly what's going on, aside from, let me talk about one or two things. In this case, it's Momoa's presence. I'm like, okay, overstuffed. Obviously we've talked about simple-minded. If it's overstuffed, that could be good.
I'm down with overstuffed. Yeah. You know what I mean? I mean, that's never happened to me, but
yeah. Yeah, never. Exactly. So,
never.
Yeah. So, it's funny as I'm reading.
Is that a fat joke?
Well, gay joke, but could be could be a fat joke.
He's a chubby chaser.
If you start kind of reading between the lines and you're looking for exactly what you would expect people to say, like the case in Mara, okay, if she's saying it's an overstuffed mess, that actually could be a good thing based on history. So some other people talk about that not since Superman the movie have I seen a DC comic book movie where it's hard on its sleeve, unveiling every single element of Aquaman lore with sheer unabashed excitement and enthusiasm. That was from Cinema Crazed. Some different things. I don't know about comparing it to Superman the movie. Maybe it's a fun origin, I guess.
Well, I also like Mara Reinstein, the one you were just talking about. Take away Momoa's steady presence. Okay, so if you remove the main character that the movie's about, the movie's a mess. Yeah, no shit, Sherlock. How'd you fucking come to that deduction?
I'm just kind of reading through some of, the categories from that article that I mentioned earlier. There's a couple interesting things, especially in terms of what about its place in the DC universe. Now, here's some pull quotes. One is from Jim. I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name, from IGN. He says, this is the movie Green Lantern was too reluctant to be its most unabashedly DC Comics embracing movie in the current shared universe. Kind of intriguing. And then Elena, Aquaman seems too afraid of falling into the much derided gravity of Snyder's DC movies and does not have the courage to take any of its stakes seriously. And a little bit worrisome, depending on how it goes.
WB needs to kiss more ass. They ain't giving these guys the perks, man.
Yeah, I guess not, yeah.
So what does this mean for Aquaman? And what does this ultimately mean for the Snyder Cut in general? Obviously, right when we posted our video about what Jason Momoa was saying on these press tours that he's going on with Aquaman, he unloads one of the biggest bombs when MTV News asked him about the Snyder Cut. And do you want to see it? And he said, yeah, fuck yeah. I love cussing. And when you really, when a guy like Jason Momoa just really wants to emphasize the word fuck, it really helps this old soul just heal and feel good about the world again for a little bit. I don't know. Just good use of the word fuck.
catches you a little off guard. You know, at first you're watching it just on an MTV news thing and you're like, dang, like, I can't believe he just said that. Regardless, you know, we're obviously moving forward with Jason Momoa as Aquaman, which is awesome. I think that by itself is enough to add another notch to the Snyder Cut, you know, and just continue to push that forward. Obviously, what Jason Momoa is doing to kind of, I guess, bring the Snyder Cut a little bit more to light is awesome as well. Definitely the success of this movie is going to continue to help the Snyder Cut movement.
And also on that video, I like when he looks to his side. There's somebody's looking at it, and I really want to know who. I really want to know who, because even Amber Heard turns and looks too. And I don't know if it's like a WB handler or if it's somebody that's been telling him maybe not to say stuff about that crap anymore. Because he says it and he looks at him like a kid that knows he just did something wrong and looks at the parent. Like he did, and gives him that evil smile. Like,
yeah.
That's like exactly fucking it, man, when he does it. And I just loved every second of it. What he's doing right now is bringing it into the mainstream appeal. And that's always the biggest thing you can do, is bring it to the biggest audience possible. And if he talks about it, and he talks about the enthusiasm that he has, and if people like Aquaman and see how enthusiastic he is, maybe they'll have second thoughts about the Snyder Cut. But Aquaman obviously will be a big, big, big key into pushing the Snyder Cut forward and giving Jason Momoa and others some actual leverage for the future of basically Aquaman or any of these characters that are going to be involved in the DC universe. So we're going to end this with the last little bit of information from Jason Momoa. He was quoted in an article. It's just kind of telling someone that really appreciates the opportunities they were given by mainly Zack Snyder, because Zack Snyder was who casted him, who brought him in, who basically tricked him to come in there so he could see him firsthand. But he says, when something happens like that, I really couldn't give two shits about the movie. Zack is someone who kind of saved my life. This opportunity to be where I am is all because of him. So if you like Aquaman, you could pretty much thank Zack Snyder.
So then something else I thought was really cool, it was shared on Vero by Fiona. Jason Momoa says regarding Zack Snyder, really, like, I'm a soulmate with him. He's family. I'm very indebted to that man. I invited him to my wedding. I told him to look around on my property and the things I barely held on to, because there were moments in my career where you can't put food on the table. Not being picky and choosy, but it's hard to make it in this business. I looked at him and I said, you see these things? These would never, ever, ever have happened if it wasn't for you. So Zack has a huge part of my heart. And then the cool part is, Zack Snyder liked that post.
Are you crying? Am I crying? No, I'm not crying. You're crying.
And I think that's what's important, is these are people. You got to remember that. You know, people want to talk shit about them, say they ruin their lives somehow because they're a depiction of a character. But these guys are people. As much as you may or may not like Zack Snyder, I still always thought his casting was superb in almost every aspect. I can get some people's gripes with Jesse Eisenberg a little bit. At the same time, you look at everybody else and you're just like, he's just spot on. You know, he just got guys to fill in these parts that just were so meant for some of these parts. They really added their own type of influence on these characters. And I have a feeling when we see Aquaman, it's going to be, you're going to forget about that Super Friends Aquaman. And this is going to be who you think of when you think of Aquaman. So hopefully that's true. And we'll definitely be doing our review on Aquaman next week.
Yep.
In case I don't see you.
Good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
Congratulations, you made it to the end of the video. You're one of very few to make it to the end.
Yes, thank you very much.
Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to Comic Movie Marks Podcast and hit the notification bell. You know, all these fucking YouTube channels say this shit, so I'm going to say it now.
Yes, it's perfect. And if you want to hear our full podcast, you can check out our podcast on iTunes or any other podcast subscription service.
Make sure you subscribe. Thanks again.